What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Casual Fridays here at Miami, where we talk anything Miami, basketball, and dive a little deeper into the personalities around the program. My name is Ryan Smith. I'm Director of Basketball Operations, also serving as host for this series. Today we're fortunate enough to have Coach James Carsey here with us. He is the Assistant Athletic Director of Human Performance. Coach, appreciate you being here with us today, man.
Thanks for having me. I think this will be great.
First of all, I'd just like to dive in a little deeper into your background. Where'd you grow up? What town are you from? What high school did you go to? College? All that stuff.
I grew up north of Columbus, Ohio, a little town area. Actually, Marysville, Ohio, most people know of, mostly because of Honda and the women's reform. But the reality of it was a little town a little farther north than that. It was Richwood, where North Union was. And I grew up, went to high school, had about 100 kids. I graduated with it in my class, and I was a three-sport, four-year letter winner in all of them, and so that was my primary. I went off to college at Ashland University up around Akron, Canton area. I played football 4 years there, and then kind of went down the path of becoming a coach and doing all the coaching stuff, and to the point of where I am now. So.
Now, to be in your position that you are right now, what major did you have in undergrad? And you obviously have a higher degree as well, correct?
Yes. Undergrad, I had a mix. I actually had a double major. I took it in coaching on one half of it. Didn't quite finish it. I finished it in minor half of it, and then I had a commercial arts degree. I then went back my master's degree and got it in sports sciences with kinesiology and basically along those lines, and wanting to be a coach. And I always enjoyed the coaching part of it, and I really wanted to be in that, but the preparation was what I really enjoyed, and I was always very good at it, and so I just went down the path of being a strength coach. At the time, there was never really any majors in it. You just, you learned about how the human body moved, and then you applied it towards being a coach, so that was the path.
Yeah, it's more than just, hey, let's go get a lift in, right?
Yes.
There's way more
Yes.
into it. There's a lot that the human body does that you study, and obviously no more than the average person, no more than me for sure. But you got here to Miami in 2001, 2002. So you've been here a long time. What's your favorite thing about Oxford, about this place?
The first thing, it came from me when I got here, and Dan Dalrymple was the head at the time. He was so down to earth in how he went about things. You could tell that he cared about Miami because he played here, he played his football here, and it was true and it was honest. And everybody that was in the athletic department was that way. I actually walked in roughly, I think it was like my first or second day, and Darcy Schreiber, who was here at the time I was working in academics, and she come walking out because they were kind of introducing people all around. She come walking out and walked right up to me, and I didn't know who she was at the time. Walks right up to me and gives me this big old hug and says, "You're going to do great things here." And I was sold at that moment because that to me showed the truth of what Miami was about. And it was about the people and growing the people and growing the athletes, and I just fell in love with it from that time on.
Yeah. No doubt, being my only starting my second year and your 17th year, I think it's probably not a whole lot has changed. I think it's a lot about the people as well, still here in Oxford. But now you're directly overseeing men's basketball, which you play a huge part in what we do. But you do more than that. You play a way bigger role at Miami than just overlooking men's basketball. Can you dive a little deeper into that?
Yeah, biggest change. I came back. I was here from 2001 to 11, and then I was out for a little bit in the private sector. And I was brought back to take over the growth center, which was our original weight room in the first place. Take that over and then take over essentially Millette Sports was what they had, and then whatever teams else trained in there, the Olympic side of it mostly. And then within about a 6 month, 8 months period, as we were transitioning and things were changing for football and then moving down, we kind of rolled out this new model dealing with human performance and wellness. And it was something that Doc Daly and I had been kind of chipping away at when I was here the first time, and trying to really find a better integration between sports medicine and strength conditioning. How we transition kids from injury, how are we checking them for injury, everything we were doing from that standpoint, and then trying to get it over into the performance side of it. And we always called it the gray area between the two, because a kid is healthy, but they weren't quite ready to be 100 miles an hour, and we were trying to find a way to bridge that. And it goes into all all kinds of things. I mean, to the point now that we're, everything we do from our nutrition, everything we do from sports psych to just psychology in general, things that, back when I played just weren't dealt with. They really weren't. It was just, you're tough and go do it. And now we try to figure out, what we're trying to do with those athletes. So.
No question. And I think, sometimes people get the idea that the sports psych aspect of it and the athletic training and the training room aspect of it and then over in the weight room with you guys are all separate. And that's not the case. It's all combined. It's all under the same umbrella, which you guys are doing a great job of kind of integrating it all right now.
And that was a big thing. We're wanting to get to this point of looking at the athlete and doing everything we can for the athletes to grow them. I think for our standpoint, we had a really great overall athletic setup this last year. I mean, we ended up being second in, I think it was Jacoby, and third in Reese. And so, I mean, there was things that we're starting to see some fruition on just the initial starts of this stuff. I know my ultimate dream, and I know Doc, when we're talking about it, is we want to be in that spot where we're in the top 3 in the conference in every sport that we do and what we do. And so that's how we look at it, And I mean, exciting for basketball standpoint. We had such a great year last year. I mean, I realize people think, well, we're a little over 500, but we were doing things. We were in things. And so I think building that mentality and building the athlete to be ready to do this is where we're looking to go with it.
Now, Coach, you mentioned earlier about us having a great year last year. Maybe not where we want to be record-wise, but obviously making strides in the right direction. What are some specific goals you see for individual guys on our team, and then as a program as a whole?
Yeah. First of all, we have talking to the mindset of the body comp and the size. We had such a lot of talent out of those guys last year. Those freshmen coming in, but we need to get some more size on them, some mass to them. I think it's going to help them be a little more durable and last a little bit longer. Delonte, we've always, I've been chirping at him all in the spring about, coming back and being a true kind of a big man who's very athletic. And so that side of it, if I can get him in above the 210, 215 range, it'd be great. If we get him at 220 in that frame, I think he'd just be an unstoppable force. Nike, we've talked about putting a little more weight on him. Bam, we've talked about, and I'll put him on the hot spot. About cutting back some weight here and there, just so that he moves better, a little more consistent. So I think there's a lot dealing with our body comps and how we do it, how we go about our strength training on that as well. I think, a stronger, more powerful team, and we've changed the playing style here, which is fun. We're very explosive, dynamic, and then we play that hard defense. And that requires some durability out of us. And so I've been making some chirping with a lot of those guys on that. And those are probably 2 areas that I really want to see them improve. I think we run pretty well. I think we're relatively conditioned pretty well. They do a good job of working hard in that, but we just got to have a little more durability and meat to us.
What is your favorite part of your job? Give me one specific that you think, hey man, this is why I do this.
I love it when kids accomplish something they didn't think they were going to be able to do. We'll initially start, and they all come in and they'll puff themselves up, and I want to be this and I want to be that, but I don't know if they truly believe that they're going to be that. And then when we say, all right, and we hold them to it, and we start pushing, and you start accomplishing things that they never were held accountable for before that. And all of a sudden you can just see the light come on, and they're excited, and they're like, man, I can't believe I was able to do that. And so that for me is probably the biggest thing, is to see that. The other thing I would piggyback on that is seeing that they are cared for year in, year out, and they don't realize how much they didn't receive before or had never had before until they've had somebody who's just constantly on them about their life and making changes. And that's fun for me, so I enjoy that.
And I think that one thing to point out too is not only you set specific goals in the weight room or on the track or wherever you guys are training at, and they reach those goals, but not only are they reaching the goals there, but then it translates to on the playing field. And I think that's a pretty cool thing as well.
Yeah, and we're trying to hold them accountable to the things that are being set for the team,
right.
And so everything we do needs a mirror as much as we can to what's happening for them there as well.
Coach, there's so many things that go into taking care of your body. Obviously you hear the saying that your body is a temple. Number one, in my mind, is nutrition. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us a little bit about how Miami is going about taking care of the nutrition part of taking care of these student athletes?
Yeah, this has actually been a big area since I've been back that we've trying to attack. I hate to put it any other way than it was, is that I kind of felt that we were in the Stone Ages and some of the things that we were doing. We've said that before, and I think a lot of things we're doing initially right now is making sure that we have some kind of, as we call it, feeding around the training. A lot of these kids will come rolling in right from class and have to come work out, and then maybe they do some practice work or skill work. And so we're getting these huge gaps of not having food. And we know study-wise that training, that nutrition is really important around our training setup. So we're doing a lot from a standpoint of whether it be Gatorade bars or Gatorade shakes. And we even do a wide variety of a couple other companies that do Hydrolyte, which is a recovery kind of sodium base. It helped come from that, sodium potassium base, to just the types of just having some extra, 2 or 3 different bars of some kind of food that they can have something to eat around it. Second thing we're doing now is also in this process is trying to hire full-time nutritionists. And this, I think, is going to be huge for us. So we'll be able to, one, the hard cases, those who really need to change some body comps, whether it's gain weight or lose weight, but also show them exactly what it is they need to eat in the order of it. So have somebody who's on them with that. We also are in the process of trying to find a place from the dining hall standpoint of how we're closer to where we are athletically and how we're doing stuff, how we can feed kids all year round. So nutrition for me is, I'd like to see us get to the point where we're trying to partner also across campus with nutrition department. So we're trying to see if we can get in and get a bunch of students coming over who can work on fueling stations and those kind of things. So I could probably talk forever on it, but there's a lot to it that we're doing.
No, food is obviously a great topic, and I'd love to talk about it all day. But as we mentioned before, there's so much more than that goes into your job. And say, hey, let's throw some kid on a bench press or on a squat rack and let them go at it. But how much of what you do is specific technique to a certain body part just for injury prevention, and how big is injury prevention in the weight room?
It's really big. If I go back 10, 15 years, if I went back to my age when I was playing, nobody ever thought about that. You know, they hand you a sheet of paper, it had a big squat, deadlift, whatever, and you just went in and threw weights around and couldn't figure out why you may be getting stronger, but I'm not being able to correct some of these things that are or have issues that are imbalances, and it has changed so much from a standpoint of studies and how they're being done, even from our Gray's Anatomy book. It had certain subjects on how you're supposed to move certain joints a certain way muscular-wise. They didn't have a whole lot in there compared to what they have now. They've had to redo the issues. So it's primary number one. If I were to put it down in ranking on that stuff, the prehab and the movement patterns are more important to me, and I think I'll get more help or give more help to the athlete out on the court, the field, whatever, than just the lifting itself. If I can correct the movement pattern, they become better. And then we add strength to that and speed to that, and then that changes the game.
Yeah,
so
no question. Obviously, your role is bigger, faster, stronger for all of our guys. Maybe not bigger for all of them, but what steps in your mind can high school kids take, guys who are 14, 15, 16 years old, to prepare themselves for a Division I college weight room? Because I remember my first lifting session when I was a freshman in college, and I had been lifting all summer, but thinking I was prepared, and I walked in and threw up the first day. It was just a whole new level. So what in your mind can you give to high school kids, like, hey, this is what you need to be doing?
I think consistency in what they do, training-wise, not they tell themselves that they're going to work out really hard for 3 days out of the week, and a lot of times it's only 1.5. They may not push themselves a little bit farther than they normally do. A lot of times you probably realize they come in the tempo and what you're held accountable to is at a higher rate, and they're not used to that. And even in the sport of basketball, it's still in that spot where they realize that lifting is important, but they don't put as much effort into it as it does the basketball, which, again, I don't have any problem with that, but they don't see it the same rate as football. It's kind of been integrated into it. A thrower in track and field, it's been integrated into it, but the sprinter doesn't know any different. So the same thing would happen with basketball. And so I just think getting that process of being consistent with themselves. I'm also big about them being able to do really well movement pattern-wise, body weights, that kind of stuff. being able to really put out some volume in their push-ups and their body weight squats and lateral lunges and getting range of motion, the things we were talking about earlier. If they do that correctly, that allows us to transition into heavier weight. I'm not big on whether they do a lot of Olympic lifts early. It allows me to kind of correct some things and teach some stuff early. So,
because the last thing you want to be doing is doing the Olympic lifts wrong.
Exactly.
Yeah. Next thing for me is stretching. I started 10 years ago, and it wasn't that long ago. It doesn't seem that long ago, but I remember just being like, all right, I'm out there on the court. Let's do it.
Yeah.
But how important is that, the pre-stretch before practice and even post-practice stretching?
Yeah. Post-practice is the easy one. It really should be a lot more of the static stretches, the things that we realize and we know. Pre-stuff is really more the dynamic movement, and you don't have to be overly flexible, but you have to be able to move into the ranges that you need to move into dynamically. And a lot of those prehab movement stuff that we talk about are just as important as that, because they're firing those muscles early on. And you're right. I mean, it was, again, if I go back to the archaic of my time, it was, you rolled out there, you had the 10-minute stretch, and you did your deal, and then it was just 100 miles an hour. And you couldn't figure out why you ended up with the trainers really, really quickly and fast. So it's a huge difference in it. I just think it's timing more than anything. I still wish that we could get our guys to do post stuff a whole lot more on their own and get them doing. But I do get them in a standpoint of foam rolling and doing things that we never did a lot of that stuff again. And it's helping out with their mobility. It's helping out with their durability, and helping us to just be on the court longer. The more I do that, if I get to the point that I can be in practice, the better player I'm going to be. If I spend time with their trainers, we love them. They're nice people, but it'd be great if they just sat there and didn't have to do anything, right? That's the biggest change that needs to happen for them.
And I think if more guys, and not just on our team, I think in general in the sport of basketball, take that stretching part seriously, do you think that would give you a better opportunity to reach your peak later in the season? Yeah,
I think so. You're also talking about being young kids when you're a little more pliable, not as much muscle mass, you're getting a skill. As you're getting older, we're getting older and get a little stiffer. We need to make sure we're moving around a little bit better, as JR would tell you all the time. He pulled them calves all the time. So,
absolutely. We have a lot of guys, as we mentioned, that need to gain weight. Mm-hmm. We got guys that just need to maintain, and then we got guys that need to lose weight. Mm-hmm. Or not necessarily lose weight, but change their body around a little bit. Is it hard for you in your position to try to differentiate lifts and then nutrition and then in practice stuff or conditioning stuff to meet all the goals of each individual guy?
Yeah, trying to break it down to the point where we have each and every guy has their own specific, and then if they're all lifting at the same time is a lot harder to do than if I had them in smaller groups or individuals. So it really depends on time of the year with that. The biggest thing is getting them to, they're good when they're around you, and so same thing, you're talking about study tables, you do anything. They're really good when we're out on them, doing something with them. When they leave and go back to the dorm room, those kind of things, when they get to go out in the evenings and go get their food. Did it resonate enough that they changed their habit there? That's where it really needs to make the big difference for us. And so that's the hard part for me, I think, is trying to get them to buy into it and be like, I'm not trying to make you be on a diet just for the sake of it because I'm bored and I want to have you on a diet. Right. I want you to change it because this is going to make you better at what you want to do. And so it's changing that mindset, I think, is the biggest thing.
Yeah, and for sure, it's definitely hard when you've conditioned in the morning, then you've had weights, and you've had a 2.5-hour practice or so to like, hey, I deserve this bag of Doritos. It's hard to do
Pizza sounds great right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Coach, last question for you before the rapid fire round. If you can give me, if you can, you have to use specific names you don't want to, your most rewarding story you've had since you started this profession.
I've had, mine would have to be in boxes. There's different things. Some I'm dealing with academics, some kids who probably should have never made it through school did, things like that. A couple funny ones, or I guess the ones that stick out of my mind right away. Brandon Brooks, being able to speak up there, for our graduation. It blows my mind.
And
he does such
I
a
hate to
great
interrupt you,
job.
but he gave you a individual shout out, right?
Yeah, that was exciting. I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't around for it either, but that spot, that was big for me from just that standpoint of the person who had grown. It came in as a freshman to the man he is now, and you see the accomplishments he has in that. Doug Penna, who's in our basketball program, he worked in strength conditioning, intern with me, and was this quiet guy, just a hard worker. And for him to hit the last shot, I mean, if you'd just seen his face, and it was the most rewarding situation. But the one that I think right off the bat that I always I laugh about was, I got into I used to train our hockey team. And when I was back in our front half, and we had a nice run in there where we were in the Frozen Four a couple times when we were in the national championship game. Well, the beginning of that season, we had a lot of talent, but the guys, they fishtail a little bit. And I got after them one day, and I said, you know what? I said, you don't realize how many people are fighting for you and doing all these things for you, and you're not paying us back. I said, I'm going to tell you what. I said, I'm going to put this out here on the ledge. You guys always want me out here on the ice, and you think it's funny when I'm standing on skates, big monkey trying to stay on these little blades. I said, if you, win a national championship this year, I said, I will suit up in a hockey, in a goalie gear. I said, I'll sit in, and I said, for 10 minutes, I'll let you shoot pucks at me. And I was 17 seconds away from that happening. And you can talk about how excited I was on one side, and sweating bullets and scared, thinking, those pucks are going to hurt.
Yeah, no doubt.
And so I was that close, 17 seconds. And trust me, I would have taken all the bruises and broken bones or whatever it was they said for a national championship. But that was a big one in my head. And the funny thing was guys were coming off the side, and they were just like, we're going to get it, Coach. You're going to be in there. It was like the whole year they chirped about it. So, yeah, that was very memorable for me.
That's awesome, and hopefully we can create more of those moments here in the upcoming years with Miami Redhawk basketball. But I got some rapid fire questions for you. Just answer the first thing that pops into your head. Last thing. First one: crunchy or creamy peanut butter?
Crunchy.
Favorite professional athlete of all time?
Michael Jordan.
Most important lift in the weight room?
Power clean.
Favorite dessert?
Ooh, chocolate chip cookie.
Protein bar or protein shake?
Protein shake.
All right, Coach.
Because I can put a lot in it.
Yeah, appreciate you coming on, Coach. We'll be back next week. Come fly with us with transfer senior Alex Abrams.